Your car is dying. Maybe it's the transmission. Maybe it's rust eating through the frame like cancer. Either way, it's headed to the same place as every other junker on the road. A place where 12 million vehicles go to get absolutely shredded every single year in the United States alone. And here's the thing, nobody tells you about that rusting Honda in your driveway. In 6 weeks, pieces of it could be inside a brand new Tesla, or a skyscraper, or the bridge you drove over this morning. So how does a 3,000-pound hunk of metal, plastic, and regret get turned back into something useful? Buckle up, because this process is way more intense than you think. Let's start at the end. Your car's final destination, the junkyard. Except don't call it a junkyard. The industry hates that term. They prefer auto recycling facility or dismantling center. Sounds way more professional when you're about to rip something apart with a machine that could eat a small building. Your car doesn't just show up and get thrown into a crusher. That's movie nonsense. The real process, way more surgical. And it starts the second your junker rolls through those gates. First stop is fluid drainage. Brake fluid, transmission fluid, power steering fluid, and gasoline gets sucked out. Why? Because you can't just crush a car full of toxic liquids and call it a day. The EPA gets cranky about that sort of thing. We're talking potential fines that make your car's repair bill look like pocket change. The fluids go into specialized tanks. Oil gets filtered and resold. Antifreeze gets recycled. Gasoline gets refined. Nothing goes to waste because waste costs money. And this entire industry runs on one principle above all others. If it has value, extract it. If it doesn't, find a way to make it valuable. Next comes the treasure hunt. And yes, that's what they actually call it. Before your car becomes a pancake, people swarm it like automotive vultures. They're pulling anything remotely reusable. Engines, transmissions, alternators, starters, catalytic converters. Especially catalytic converters. Those things are packed with platinum, palladium, and rhodium, precious metals that make your car's exhaust cleaner and make recyclers very happy. A single catalytic converter can be worth anywhere from $50 to $1,400. Suddenly, those late-night news stories about catalytic converter theft make a lot more sense. But it's not just the expensive stuff. Door panels, seats, mirrors, electronics, even the steering wheel. If somebody might need it for their own repair job, it gets pulled and sold. The used auto parts market in the U.S. alone is worth over $36 billion annually. That's billion with a B. Your busted 2004 Civic is basically a donor organ for 1,000 other 2004 Civics still limping along out there. Tires come off next. Because here's a fun fact, tires don't recycle the same way metal does. They get shredded into crumb rubber and turned into playground surfaces. Running tracks and asphalt, roughly 76% of scrap tires get recycled in some form. The remaining 24% usually become tire-derived fuel, which is exactly what it sounds like. They burn them for energy. Is it ideal? Not really. Is it better than a landfill? Absolutely. The battery gets yanked out too. Car batteries are basically lead-acid time bombs if not handled properly. But here's the good news. Car batteries are one of the most recycled products on Earth. We're talking a 99% recycling rate. Almost every single battery gets broken down, and the lead gets melted and reused. New batteries contain up to 80% recycled lead. It's a closed loop that actually works. Shocking, right? Glass comes out. Windows, windshields, mirrors. Windshields are laminated, meaning they've got a plastic layer sandwiched between glass. That makes them annoying to recycle, but not impossible. The glass gets crushed, the plastic gets separated, and both materials find new lives. Usually in fiberglass insulation or new glass containers. Now we get to the fun part. The part where things get loud. Really loud. Now a hollow shell gets moved to the crusher, the car baler. This machine has one job. Turn your three-dimensional vehicle into a two-dimensional metal cube. The crusher applies about 2,400 pounds per square inch of pressure. For perspective, that's roughly the bite force of a large crocodile. Except this crocodile is the size of a house and runs on hydraulics. The car flattens like a soda can under a boot. In about 60 seconds, your sedan becomes a metal pancake roughly 4 feet by 5 feet by 2 feet. Compact, stackable, and ready for transport. These crushed cars get stacked into massive piles, sometimes hundreds deep, waiting for their turn in the real monster of this operation, the shredder. If you've never seen an industrial car shredder in action, imagine a blender designed by someone who really hates cars. These machines are absurdly powerful. The biggest ones can process 450 cars per hour. That's one car every 8 seconds. Crushed vehicles get fed into a massive rotating drum filled with hammers. Not little hammers. We're talking hammers that weigh hundreds of pounds each, spinning at high speeds. The noise is unreal, even with ear protection. Workers describe it as feeling the sound in your chest. The car gets pummeled, ripped, torn, and shattered into fist-sized chunks in seconds. Metal, plastic, glass, rubber, foam, everything mixed together in a chaotic stream of debris pouring out the other side. And here's where things get really clever. That mixed-up mess doesn't stay mixed up, because buried in that pile of shredded car parts is the whole reason this industry exists. Steel. Lots and lots of steel. Roughly 65% of your car's weight is steel. And steel is magnetic. Giant electromagnets, some weighing several tons, hover over the conveyor belt carrying shredded car bits. They pull out ferrous metals. That's iron and steel to us regular folks. The magnets are strong enough to lift entire engines if they encounter one. The steel gets separated, dropped into collection bins, and sent off for the next phase. Everything else keeps moving down the line. But wait, there's more metal in there. Aluminum, copper, brass, zinc, non-ferrous metals that don't respond to magnets but are still incredibly valuable. Aluminum from the engine block, wheels, and body panels. Copper from the wiring harness. These materials get separated using a technology called eddy current separation. Without getting too deep into physics, it essentially uses magnetic fields to repel non-ferrous metals. The aluminum literally jumps off the conveyor belt like it's been spooked. Engineers have a sense of humor about these things. What's left at this point? The stuff nobody wants. Automotive shredder residue, or ASR. It's about 25% of the car's weight. Plastics, foam, rubber, fabric, dirt, and glass fragments all mixed together. For a long time, this stuff just went to landfills. Millions of tons per year. But the industry has been working on that problem because landfill space is expensive and regulations keep tightening. Now, a lot of ASR gets incinerated for energy recovery. The plastics burn hot and can generate electricity. Some facilities separate out specific plastics for recycling. It's not perfect. It's not even great, but it's better than it was a decade ago. The goal is to hit 95% total vehicle recyclability. We're sitting around 86% right now. Getting that last chunk is the hard part. Back to the steel. Because that's where the real magic happens. Those piles of shredded steel get loaded onto trucks and shipped to steel mills. The steel arrives contaminated. It's got paint, rust, oil residue, and probably bits of your old air freshener stuck to it. Can't make new steel with that mess. So it goes through a cleaning process. First, it gets heated in a furnace to burn off organic contaminants. Then it's washed. Then it's sorted by grade because not all steel is created equal. High-strength steel for structural components, mild steel for body panels, stainless steel for trim. They don't mix well in the melting pot. The cleaned, sorted steel heads into an electric arc furnace. This is where things get hot. And by hot, I mean temperatures that make the surface of the sun look like a mild summer day. We're talking 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit. That's 1,650 degrees Celsius for the rest of the world. Electric arc furnaces use electrodes the size of tree trunks to generate an electrical arc that melts steel scrap in minutes. The electricity required to run one of these furnaces for an hour could power about 3,000 homes for a day. It's an obscene amount of energy. But here's the kicker. It's still way more efficient than making steel from scratch. Creating steel from raw iron ore requires a blast furnace, which uses coal, limestone, and iron ore at extremely high temperatures. The process generates massive amounts of CO2 and requires far more energy. Making steel from recycled scrap uses about 75% less energy than making virgin steel. That's not a small difference. That's a game changer. It's why the steel industry loves recycled material. It's cheaper, faster, and cleaner. The molten steel in the electric arc furnace reaches a liquid state and gets poured into massive ladles. These aren't kitchen ladles. These are containers that hold hundreds of tons of liquid metal. The steel gets tested for composition, adjusted with additional elements if needed, and then cast into shape. This is where your old car stops being your old car and becomes something new. The molten steel gets poured into continuous casting machines that form it into slabs, blooms, or billets, depending on its final use. These semi-finished products cool, solidify, and get cut to length. From there, they head to rolling mills where they're squeezed, shaped, and formed into sheets, beams, rods, or whatever form is needed. Those steel sheets might end up at an automotive plant where they're stamped into body panels for new cars. Your 2008 Ford could literally become part of a 2025 Chevy. The steel beam might become part of a building structure. The rod might become rebar in a highway bridge. Steel doesn't degrade when it's recycled. You can melt it down and reform it infinitely. It's the ultimate renewable resource, assuming you can collect it. And the numbers are staggering. The global steel industry recycles about 650 million tons of steel every year. To put that in perspective, that's roughly the weight of 2,400 Empire State Buildings. The United States alone recycles more steel than aluminum, paper, glass, and plastic combined. Steel is the most recycled material on the planet. Not because people are particularly eco-conscious, but because it makes economic sense. A ton of recycled steel scrap is worth money. Prices fluctuate, but scrap steel typically sells for $200 to $400 per ton. When you're processing millions of tons, that adds up fast. The automotive recycling industry in the U.S. generates about $25 billion in annual revenue. It employs roughly 140,000 people. It's not a side hustle. It's a massive industrial operation that keeps the entire manufacturing sector supplied with raw materials. Here's something most people don't realize. When you buy a new car, you're already driving recycled material. The average new car contains about 25% recycled steel. Some manufacturers push that number even higher. It's not because they're being noble. It's because recycled steel is cheaper and performs just as well as virgin steel. The free market accidentally stumbled into environmentalism. But let's talk about what this system replaced. Because it wasn't always this efficient. Go back 50 years and junked cars were essentially toxic waste. They'd get dumped in fields, pushed into ravines, or left to rust in massive piles. Fluids would leak into groundwater. Metals would oxidize and corrode. It was an environmental disaster happening in slow motion across thousands of locations. The industry changed because regulations forced it to change. The Resource Conservation and Recovery Act and various state laws made it illegal to just abandon cars or improperly dispose of automotive waste. Suddenly, there was a financial incentive to do things properly. Extract the valuable materials, dispose of the hazardous ones safely, and recycle everything possible. Now the system is so efficient that your car has value even when it's completely dead. That's why junkyards will pay you for your clunker. Usually a few $100, but something they're not doing you a favor. They're buying inventory. That rusted-out Corolla in your driveway is worth its weight in commodities. And the technology keeps improving. Newer shredders are more powerful and efficient. Separation technology gets more sophisticated. The percentage of a car that gets recycled keeps inching upward. The goalposts keep moving toward total recyclability. Will we ever get to 100%? Probably not. There will always be some residual waste. But getting close, that's absolutely achievable. So next time you see a junkyard, remember what it actually is. It's not where cars go to die. It's where they go to transform. That heap of rusted metal isn't an ending, it's a middle chapter. Your old car will become part of something new, something you might drive over, live in, or buy at a dealership without ever knowing it used to be someone else's transportation. 12 million cars get recycled in the US every year. That's one car every 2.6 seconds. Right now, somewhere in America, a car just got shredded. It'll be something completely different. The circle of automotive life, minus the singing lions.